Alright guys, welcome back. So we've got quite a few updates that you might already know about because they came out on Friday. At the time of recording now, it's Monday. So I've started to record all my videos in bulk, basically. Record them all on a Monday, unless there's real sort of drastic news that comes out in the week that I have to then make a video about. But I'm starting to try and have a day of recording, getting a few videos done so I can edit them throughout the week. But there was some news on Friday, a few different posts, and there's two of them in particular that I want us to look at, and it all is in regard to Season of Mastery, about class balancing and items that will be available from the start, and I just want us to have a look at the blue post. I'll give you my opinion on it, and I've also got a video coming out in the next day or so, which I've just filmed before this one, but this one really needs to go out first, about whether I'm going to be playing Season of Mastery or not, so make sure you keep an eye out for that, and let's have a look at these posts. Oh, make sure you like and subscribe as well, because it really helps out. Subscribe to the channel, lots of content. Season of Mastery, RAF, TBC, Classic Era, you name it, it's on here. Okay, so the first one, which was posted 2 days ago, I missed the boat a little bit on these, but just in case you've missed it, at least you'll find it out now with me, because I've not even read these myself yet. No major class changes from Blizzard. So classes are the lens through which we view World of Warcraft, and for many players, the way our favourite class plays forms a large part of the memories we have of a particular era in World of Warcraft history. A big part of what makes WoW Classic special is being able to relive and remaster the gameplay that bygone versions of WoW provided, and a large part of the WoW Classic project is bringing that back for players to enjoy. We want players to recognise their class, both their strengths and their limitations, and we don't want to create a situation where frequent balance changes are necessitated and leave players wondering what's happening with their class from week to week. What that does is adds a bit of excitement. Like, that's a real bad way of looking at class balancing, because actually going from being the worst DPS to being in the top 3 or possibly top 1 when a round of balance changes go out, or tweaks and tuning goes out, it's actually a really good thing. It's not something where we go, oh no, like some classes, as they get nerfed a bit, they might end up down below a class that they used to be above, but then you wait for the next round of balancing and then you see it again. I personally like that. I don't see that as a bad thing, because it's them showing that they are actually watching, they're listening, they're looking at what people can do, and they're making positive steps to make it a better raiding experience. So, not really sold on the opening statement here. The bug fixes are always possible, of course, but broadly speaking, the classes you know from Classic will be the classes you experience again this season. So while we know some players are interested in seeing a version of Classic that has adjustments to core class toolkits, that's not our plan for this season. So they have said this season, they haven't said it's not a plan for any season. Could be good news for Season 2, maybe I'll just wait till then. We've also heard the concerns that having increased health for raid bosses might further reduce class diversity, which it absolutely will. This has especially focused on warriors and rogues being better on long fights because they don't run out of mana. We're not insensitive to this concern, but our intention behind increasing the health of raid bosses is to make up for the better itemization on gear and improved talents provided by the 1.12 version of items and classes. We want to make sure players actually stay in combat long enough to engage with the boss mechanics, and we believe that the changes made to the encounters might inspire new strategies for raids. It will inspire new strategies for raids. They're absolutely right. It'll inspire a new strategy where we take the old strategy of stacking warriors and rogues and we take more of them. Based on what we saw in Molten Core and Onyxia beta testing last week, groups that stacked warriors and rogues seemed to struggle more than groups that had a greater diversity of classes. There are a lot of variables there, especially given their gear and the fact that they were experienced the fights for the first time, but it gave us hope that we're on the right track here. We'll keep an eye on things though. We're open to further adjustments if needed, if it turns out we're mistaken. Ultimately, it's not a goal of Season of Mastery to specifically exclude any class or playstyle from any piece of raid content, and we expect that Season of Mastery raid content can and will be cleared with a very wide variety of raid compositions. This doesn't mean that we expect every single spec to be fully represented at all levels of play, but we do hope it feels familiar while moving at a different pace, with new problems to solve in order to overcome the challenges of the game. I can't agree. I flat out can't agree. I mean, those warrior and rogue groups that were struggling, well, maybe it's because it was pugs and, like they said, different mechanics that they hadn't had before. Most fights are going to be easier for range. That's not the case. That's not what we're saying. 100% having a full ranged group or having a few melee, the rest ranged, is going to be easier on dealing with mechanics in the majority of fights. But going and wipe him is also a very, very big issue. And if you can eliminate that by bringing rogues and warriors that do more damage anyway and haven't got any mana worries, to me, that's what's going to happen. We'll see. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think this is going to be any different. This is not going to be any different because the amount of damage that the rogues and warriors were doing in the group that I was in was no different to what it was before. They were still dominating the meters. So you're going to take what dominates the meters and then work out, how you're going to approach the mechanics, but ultimately have the most damage that your raid can have. Now, Blizzard they've got another post up which I'd recommend going and having a look at. It's on Wowhead anyway, so go and check it out. But just looking at it here, it's really loads of different little topics all chunked into one. So part of the post is about no class, like the class changes. Another part of it is about the PvP honor system, which they're basically going to increase the rate at which you sort of progress through the PvP honor system. Feel free to go and have a read through that. But the main thing I want to look at is how the gear is going to work in Phase 1. So what items are actually available, because I think this is quite a big one, especially from a raiding perspective. So let's have a look at what they've put out here. So in the most recent Design Intentions blue post, this is the big blue post that I'm talking about, which feel free to go and have a look over. But one notable aspect of our raid content phases is the decision to make the Dungeon Set 2, aka Tier 0.5 quest lines, available at launch. And then also the items from Phase 5. Changes made in patch 1.10 to dungeon rewards will be in place at the launch of Season of Mastery. This includes the availability of idols, librams and totems, as well as the adjusted drop locations and drop rates of such items like Hand of Justice in Blackrock Depths, which is a bit of a pain because the Hand of Justice from Blackrock Depths actually moved to the last boss, so it actually got more difficult to farm. It would have been better to leave it where it was. But, that's as someone who's going to be playing a class that wants Hand of Justice, I would have much preferred it stayed on its original boss and not moved, so you have to do a full run. Many classes such as Warlocks and Shadow Priest have to wait until Phase 4 for the Bloodvine set to achieve higher levels of spell hit. With Dungeon Set 2 launching in Phase 1, many fantastic spell hit pieces will become available, making it much easier for spellcasters. So we've got like Spellcaster, Spellweaver's Turban. I'm not going to look at all these items, but look at one, for example. So 1% hit, 36 spell damage, and 9 int, which when you actually compare it to your tier gear in Molten Core, this has got more spell damage, the same amount of hit. All right, you're losing some of that spirit, stamina, and intellect, but in actual fact, Spellweaver's Turban is probably better if you're just going for the raw spell damage. And then looking at a ring, for example, Runebounder Wizardry, which is from Lord Valthalak. 1% spell hit and 16 spell damage. When we compare that to, the rings that you can potentially get in Molten Core, obviously Ring of Spell Power is still going to be very good, but outside of that, there's not that many options for rings anyway. They're adding some items, and some of these items are particularly strong, and this is where I feel like they're making the raid more difficult to a level where you're going to need this extra gear. Whereas they could have made the raid more difficult to the point where you actually still only got the gear that you ordinarily get in Phase 1. Yeah, just my opinion. It's minor, I know, but it's sort of like making it challenging on one hand and then giving you a shed load more gear to be able to actually achieve getting through the raid. Don't know, just seems a little bit weird to me. And then probably the biggest one is the fact that they're now saying, Die Maul is going to be available at launch. So Die Maul, if you don't know, has some incredibly strong items, and they have listed some of them here on Wowhead, like the agility, 15 agility, 1% hit rings. That alone is huge. And Padre's trousers for healing is massive. 42 healing, 6 mana per 5 and 20 intellect. And then for some classes, even the trinkets are really, really big. Going into Molten Core with some of this gear, if you'd have gone into Molten Core back in the day, so in 2019, for example, not way back in the day, but just back in the day in 2019, with this sort of gear, it would have been even more of a joke than it was already, But now, I'm not saying this gear is going to make it a joke because they've made it a lot more difficult, but it just seemed a little bit unnecessary. It's almost like saying, well, most people ain't going to be able to get through how difficult the raid is without this gear. I think it would have been better to leave this gear for the later phases so there's more stuff to look forward to, and maybe just taken the boss's difficulty down ever so slightly. Then the last couple of bits on this post is about increasing the rate at which PvP, players will rank up in the PvP on a system, which Wowhead have sort of predicted that before Phase 3 you could see people at rank 14, which that gear is obviously very strong. So, and then reputation gear. So Blizzard also made a special mention to reputation gear that will be available in Phase 1, meaning that should apply to the PvP battleground reputations as well. This is especially impactful when considering the Warsong Gulch reputation leggings shenanigans obtainable after reaching Exalted. For some classes, these are incredibly powerful legs. To really put into perspective how powerful they are, they were added in original vanilla in 1.11 alongside Nax. So yeah, I mean, if these legs are available, you know, at Season of Mastery Phase 1, like it looks like they are, then yeah, that's pretty bonkers. But that's it when it comes to the Season of Mastery updates. I mean, as I say, some of it makes sense to me, some of it don't. Well, in all fairness, most of it don't, and that's sort of why I wanted to make the next video that you're going to see, which is... I might even post both on the same day, this, and then directly after I'll put out, am I playing Season of Mastery? I'm going to have to let you just sit there and wait and just see if I am going to play it or I'm not going to play it, because I'm not going to give you a spoiler there and tell you that I'm definitely going to be playing it, because that would be boring, wouldn't it? But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, subscribe, check out the channel memberships. Maybe it's something you want to join, and I'll see you on the next one.